it was a very successful weekend yet again, and there are a lot of really good players. And just, I'm going to give you the big picture here and not get into details in the weeds with specific players necessarily. But whether it's a top tight end or a top corner or a running back or whatever it might be, you're seeing far more in the way of the well thought of, already evaluated, projected 4- and 5-star kid attending these things and wanting to know more about Florida State. And, that just goes hand in hand with winning football games. That's how this whole thing works, man. At the end of the day, we can have as many conversations as we want to have about how well you recruit the state. And I have talked a lot about this aspect of the coaching staff that I wanted to change in the secondary. We got that change. Patrick Surtain is a guy that I think will attract a lot of interest from kids, juniors, and the like that are in the secondary, that play at corner and safety. I mean, how could you not notice that Florida State just hired an all-time really, really good player at the position itself, and one who did it both as a player but then raised a son to do it at Alabama, now elite in the NFL. But he himself coached high school, coached college, is coaching college now, coached in the NFL. So I think you're going to see an uptick there, and it's going to really benefit Florida State. But just in general, the way you get better at high school recruiting is to have a product that high school kids care about. If you don't naturally have relationships with the coaches in this state because you're not from this region, and much of the staff does not, and we know that. We knew that they would be coming here with a little bit of work to do in forging those relationships. It's easier to do when you have a product that sells because it's winning and kids are noticing. Now he has that opportunity. This is what that season was, 10-3. They're making the right hires. Patrick Surtain, we'll see if anything else happens down the line. But I think Florida State will continue to attract really high-caliber players in the state. Elsewhere, too, but in the state, because I've concentrated a lot on trying to make sure we get back to not allowing kids who are 5-star kids to leave this state. Clemson came in here and took them for years because we were down and Florida was down and Miami's been down for 25 years. So Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, you name it, rolling on in here and taking kids. That's got to stop. I don't care about Florida and Miami. I care a lot about Florida State. Let's see if we can do our part now that there's a legitimate product.
Yeah, it's the ultimate what have you done for me lately business is recruiting. Because, for you and for me, prestige and Florida State go hand in hand.
Sure.
Like, of course, Florida State is one of the best brands in the history of college football. Modern college football, certainly. And I say that even with a lost decade and whatever the hell this period we're coming out of is going to be called down the line. Like, for more of my adult life.
I've got some choices, but I'm not going to venture them on the air.
For more of my adult life than not, we actually haven't been good at football. And yet I still, as an alum and somebody who grew up in the 90s as a child watching this team, think of Florida State with the utmost level of respect, prestige, all that stuff. But that's the thing. When these kids that are being recruited right now were in first and second grade, that was 29 straight for this program. First and second grade?
Yeah.
So that's how fickle this thing is with recruits and having to reinforce the notion that I can win, I can better myself at an institution. You got to do it real recently because they're not old. Jameis won the national title when these kids were like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
That hurts as we get older. That hurts us a little bit more, but that's just the truth of it. And so you're only coming out of the doldrums and starting to regain the prestige. And it's not just about the wins. It's how you arrive at the wins. This is a fun offense that produces for everybody across the board. That's what last year taught us, is that this could be a multiple offense. The year prior it was, boy, blood from a stone. They could run the football, not much else. But when the whole world knew that they needed to run to win, they were able to run a fair amount. And now it's this multifaceted offense. Hopefully the defense comes along with it this next year and takes that jump so that more position groups are more naturally attracted to come here to Florida State.
Yeah, well, you look at a kid that's a Georgia commit like Landon Thomas, okay, who was at once a Florida State commit, switched over to Georgia, and I get it. If you're a tight end, and at the time that he was committed to Florida State, you hadn't had any proof yet. Georgia, steady winning national championships these days, you could see why a kid would flip. But how cool is it that he came back here? How cool is it that he came back and talked about why he came back, and also how much he loves the coaching staff, why he knows Florida State is still unrelenting in their efforts to get him to change his mind. In fact, his quote, pull it up here, was, "What Coach Norvell has done to improve this team, and I think they're going to do even more next year," goes on to say. Basically, he went on, I'm just paraphrasing some of the stuff he said here. It was good coming back, being around Coach Thomas, Coach Norvell, the family environment. Again, very cool. The coaching staff, laid back, very cool. He notices the wins over Florida, Miami, LSU, Oklahoma. Of course, all of that is tied together. But there's another guy talking about Norvell, talking about the staff, and the vibe that he gets every time he visits. And he's not the only one. Now, I get that when kids are in town to visit a coaching staff and they're going to be here for a junior day or whatever it might be, and the media gets them walking through the gates or coming out, they're not going to sit there and dog a place. They're not going to, most of the time, if you're a decent kid, you're just not going to do that. But you also don't have to go overboard and specifically praise the way that they do, the vibe that they feel and get from this coaching staff time and time again. And that's what you get from all of these kids. It's huge.
Well, very simply, you don't have to show up. Nobody's forcing you to come to Tallahassee to take interest in this program. You have to find a way beyond them maybe making a stop on a road trip where they're hitting 5 universities with their high school coach and 10 other teammates. You have to find a reason for them to get in the car, get on a plane, and come visit. And we're finding more and more of those. I want to be the next Jordan Travis. I want to be the next Trey Benson. That's the conversation that we're going to hear over the next year. This offense does what it's supposed to do, what we think it's going to do this season. Whether they make the playoff or not, you have now fortified yourself as an offensive factory. And that's what you want to do, because kids are out for, how am I going to be suited best?
Sure.
And that's fair.
Marry it with the NIL progress, and you have renewed interest from a lot of kids. Not just him, but a lot of the kids. In fact, more quotes from that, from Thomas that I love. And again, you can see why kids would like a head coach like this and why kids would like a staff like this. He says, "I've always had love for FSU. They were always on the back of my mind. I don't know when I'll be back for another visit, but I will be back. They have shown they still care about me and they want me. I'm a priority. The way they get the tight ends the ball in space, also vertically, not just the short passing game. Doesn't matter," according to Coach Norvell. This is how cool is this that he brought this up. Thomas said, he said, "It doesn't matter if I come here or decide to still go to Georgia. He's going to support me no matter what." Well, now, okay.
Maybe it has something to do with that it's never over until you transfer kind of thing now. It's never really over.
I think that's the right thing to say. I think it's the right thing to maybe even do, because you're right. It's never over. You're right. It's never over. All I really care about is, does it feel genuine when he says it? Does that seem real to you? It does him. He brought it up, and he's not the first. So the connection we're talking about on the regular matters, and that happens a lot when these kids come to visit. If you're wondering why there's real momentum.